let's talk about the Genie Plus and the Lightning Lane. So whether or not you added the Genie Plus to your package, I still recommend to watch this video because you might get to Walt Disney World and decide that you want to add it. You still can add it when you are there. They will allow you to add it starting at midnight all the way up to 7 a.m. Now, of course, I do not recommend to stay up until midnight to add it, but it is possible at that time. If you just wake up maybe at 6:30, you can add it at that time. And then you can make your first selection at 7 a.m. Everybody. So whether or not you're staying on property or off property, it doesn't matter. Everybody can make their first selection at 7 a.m. Knowing how to use the Genie Plus before you go will save you time while you are there. There are two different ways that you can use the Genie Plus, and I'm going to teach you how to use both. They're both pretty complicated, but the first way is to stack at the end of the day, and the second way is to ride as you go. For both of them, I recommend to set some sort of alarm on your phone to remind yourself to make that selection. So we'll start with the easiest way to use the Genie Plus, the stacking way. Stacking is typically best used when it is towards the end of the day. Now, you do need to keep in mind a few different things while you are making your selections. First of all, typically fireworks start at 9:20, and the parade is going to be typically at 12 and then again at 3 o'clock. So kind of have those in mind while you're making your selections, that those things are at those times and you should not try to make a selection during those times. So this is just an example. Obviously, you're not going to get these times. This is what I would recommend. And this is for the park opening at 9 o'clock and closing at 11. This is just the Magic Kingdom. So starting over here, you make your selection at 7 a.m. Now you can choose whatever ride you want to. These are the most popular rides at the Magic Kingdom. So if you want to ride any of them, I recommend to have them be one of your first selections. For example, Big Thunder Mountain is probably the most popular ride at the Magic Kingdom. So if we made our first selection for Big Thunder Mountain, we might get a 3:45 time. Okay, remember, we're making these times for later on in the day because in the morning, we're going to take our time. We're going to take pictures in front of the castle. We're going to go to the parade. We are going to go on some of those other rides that don't have long wait times. So you kind of just have to go with the flow. You keep your eye on the wait times, and if there is a ride that's less than 20 minutes, I'd go there. But keep in mind that the Magic Kingdom is very large, and you don't necessarily want to be running from one side of the land to another land. I would recommend maybe take your pictures in front of the castle, then head behind the castle to Fantasyland. A lot of those rides back there won't have as long of a wait time. All right, getting back to the stacking. So you made your first selection at 7 a.m. and then your next selection is going to be at 11 a.m. I know it's 11 a.m. because it's going to be 2 hours after the park opens. The park opened at 9, so it's 11. You make your selection for Jungle Cruise, for example. You can have a different one. I would use one of these rides. And then that selection might be for a ride at 4:25. Then you make your next selection at 1 for Splash Mountain. And that ride, you can ride at 6:45. Then at 3 p.m., you make your next selection for Pirates, for example, for 4:50. Now, even though some of these times are kind of close together, it's okay because you do have a little bit of a leeway. There is 5 minutes before and after your selection that you can still get on the ride. And also rides like Pirates and Big Thunder are right next to each other. So then 2 hours later at 5, you're making Haunted Mansion for 7. At 7, you make your ride for Peter Pan at 10:15. And then at 9, you make your ride at Space Mountain for 10:50. This is how you stack. So for this method, I recommend having already preset on your phone alarms that go off at all of these times, so you know that you can make your selection. Now, if you come across an earlier time, earlier than say maybe 3 p.m., then you might be doing the ride as you go, which we will talk about here in a second. So you don't really want to try to mix and mingle them. I would say don't try to book anything before 3. And if there is a time that's popping up that's before 3, there's a strategy that you can do is you can keep pulling down on your phone. The pulling down from the top will refresh the times. People are always canceling and rescheduling and doing other things. So each time you pull down, you could potentially be getting a new ride time. Okay, so you might end up spending 2, maybe 5 minutes refreshing to get the time that you want for this strategy. And then always keep in mind the times for these things. The fireworks starts at 9:20, but people will start lining up 2 hours in advance. I usually line up maybe an hour in advance, and there's still a decent amount of people. If you show up right 2 hours in advance, you might have a really good spot right dead center, but it's not a big deal if you're way far back, even towards the entrance, because you're still going to be able to see the fireworks, and there are illuminations on all of the buildings as well. So things to keep in mind. Now let's go talk about the other way you can use Genie. So here we have the ride as you go strategy for Genie Plus. So this is a little bit different. And as you can see, it's not every 2 hours you make your selections. This is probably way more complicated than the stacking is, because you have to remember the last time you made your selection. It's either you can make your selection after you have rode a ride, or it's 2 hours after you made your selection. Okay, so let me explain. This one is very similar. You start at 7 a.m. Okay, again, I have Big Thunder up there because that's the most popular ride. You select the most popular rides because if you wait until the end of the day, that ride might not even be an option anymore. Okay, so we have a 4:50 time that we're going to ride. It's a little bit later than we want, but that's okay because you can still ride rides earlier than that for your next selection. So then 2 hours after park opens at 9, would be 11. You can make your next selection. I have Jungle Cruise again. You can mix and mingle these, but I wouldn't do any other the other ones that are on the list. I would do these ones. These are the popular ones. The other ones you can just ride. They might be like a 20 or 30 minute wait time, but it's much better than like a 3-hour wait. So you do Jungle Cruise, or you select Jungle Cruise. You don't ride it until 11:30, half an hour later. And then you can ride it right away, even though I know there's not 2 hours here, but you rode that ride, so you get to select your next selection. So how it works is it's either 2 hours after your last selection, or it is immediately after you rode that ride, whichever one comes the soonest. You can make that selection even when you're in line for Splash. You just have to make sure that you've scanned in completely with either your Magic Band or your Keys to the World card. Some attractions have 2 spots that you need to scan. So if you scan once and you're trying to make your next selection and it's not working, it's probably because once you get up, before you enter, you have to scan again, and then that's when you can make your next selection. Okay, so then you made your selection at 5:15. Okay, and then your next selection is going to be at 1:30 because this is a later time. Now you're back to the 2-hour wait for your next ride, Pirates. Okay, Pirates is at 3:40, but 2 hours after 1:30 is 3:30. You ride Haunted Mansion. 5:25 is the actual time that you ride it. And then you can make your next selection again at 5:25 after you've rode Haunted Mansion, because it's not 2 hours here if you have 5 minutes early because you rode Haunted. Okay, then at 5:25 you have Peter Pan at 7:05, and then again at 7:05 you can make your selection for Space Mountain at 9:40, and then 7:05 to 9:05 is 2 hours. So you can make Buzz Lightyear, for example. Buzz is not really a popular ride. It's probably more popular than the Ariel ride, and that one's at 10:30. Also keeping in mind your fireworks and your parade as well. So I know it gets really complicated. If you have any questions, let me know and I will do my best to explain it. I definitely recommend stacking at the end of the day. That's a little bit less complicated, and then you can already have your alarm set in your phone for those times, because look at these times. You have to remember to make a selection. So I hope this video was helpful to you, and have a great vacation.